Welcome to Mom Bods and Margaritas, where two childhood friends navigate the wild and crazy world of midlife.
That's right. We're diving into the ups and downs of relationships, motherhood, health, sports, and everything in between.
Join us as we share our personal stories, laugh through the challenges, and explore how to thrive in this transformative phase of life. Whether you're feeling lost, empowered, or somewhere in between, we're here to remind you you're not alone.
So grab a coffee or a margarita, settle in, and let's embark on this journey together. It's time to embrace the chaos and celebrate the beauty of midlife. Let's get started. Well, happy Thursday.
Thanks. How has yours been?
It's been good. Had a lot to do this week, gotten a lot accomplished, but looking forward to the weekend.
I like your glasses.
Thanks. They're another pair of my Mrs. Roper 3-pack that I got when I was traveling and broke my other ones. Yeah, I love the green, and I have a pair of like tortoiseshell too. I'm into funky glasses these days.
Let me just tell you about my day before we get started, because I feel like I am still just so full of anxiety right now. I just get myself worked up for nothing. Sorry, I've got so much stuff over here. I've got like my iPad, my phone, computer. So my iPad always,
Same.
it wants to cut off. So I'm always having to look over here. But, okay. So, I had my doctor's appointment today.
Yes.
It was over on 280 this morning. Okay. Which is fine. No big deal. And so after I finished there, I went to the DMV to get my star ID. Well, I was in our van, okay, because
Mm-hmm.
I've got it here so I can do some yard work, so I've needed it here, and it was behind my car. So anyway, I just took the van. Well, I thought, you know what? It's a nice day. I feel like driving around. I'm just going to go down to 80 and then get on the interstate by the summit rather than go home 119. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like lunchtime. And I hope I can get through this. You're probably gonna be like, that's so not funny. So I'm driving along and I notice a cop beside me, so we're kind of like driving the same. And all of a sudden, I see him get right behind me and he turns on his lights. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I pull over. And of course, now I'm thinking if you know anything about 280 at lunchtime, it is jam packed with people. Our van
Yes.
is very noticeable.
Yes.
I'm like, I know people I know are going to see me. So I pull over. He comes over and says, so I pulled you over because your tag is expired.
Oh my God.
And I said, oh, I had no idea. So this is, our van from my husband's company, blah, blah, blah. And so he's trying to get the VIN number. He said, yeah, your tag is reading 2021.
Not to mention you've been to the beach how many times in that thing
Oh,
since 2021?
listen, I'm getting there, because don't you think that I wasn't going to let Jeffrey Hunter hear about how many times I have taken that van on trips with
Oh my
my
gosh.
family and my friends. So anyway, I'm just like, okay, let me just try to call my husband, because surely we've not got an expired tag for 4 years, So of course he's out of town. So I try calling him. He doesn't answer. So I send a text and I'm like, I'm pulled over because of this expired tag on the van.
Oh
He
no.
calls me back. Hey, I stepped out of a meeting. What's going on? So I tell him, and he's like, well, we have several tags for different demo vans, blah, blah, blah. And I said, that's great, but where's the renewed one for the van that I'm in? And so the cop is standing there. Anyway, he was super nice. He was such a nice guy. He let me go. He said, I'm not going to give you a ticket. He said, I already ran your tag. He said, but I did try it on 2 different systems, and both are saying it's been expired since 2021.
Oh
So
no.
anyway, I called my daughter because she works with my husband and said, what do I need to do about getting the tag for this van? Is it there at the office? What do I need to do? And so she was taking care of it. But of course, on the way home, I'm looking in my rearview mirror the entire time thinking, please don't let another policeman get behind me. And like there's an SUV behind me and it's got like the luggage rack
Yes.
on the back and the thing on the grill. And every time I look up, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a cop. And I'm looking for lights. And I'm just like, Lisa, calm down. It's a regular SUV with luggage racks. I start to pull in my neighborhood. There's like a white truck pulled off to the side with like lights on. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the police. They're going to get me. No, Lisa, it's the Helena Parks and Recs truck. Okay, calm down. It's not a
They're
policeman.
out reading meters.
Yeah. And
They're
so
cutting back some bushes around the fire hydrants.
So I pull in my neighborhood, and of course, I feel like I'm doing the walk of shame because you think everybody that you've passed on the way home has noticed that your tag is expired. So I'm doing like the drive of shame home, and I'm like, I really just want to pull in my driveway backwards. So when people are out walking in the
Oh
neighborhood,
my
they
gosh.
can't see my van, which I didn't. I was afraid I was going to hit a mailbox. So
You're such a criminal.
I pull in, I run inside, and I put my phone down and I see I've got a text message. And of course, the first thing I think of is this better be Jeffrey texting me an apology text for letting this happen. No, it was a text from World Market.
Poor Jeffrey. I mean, he's like
Poor
out of
Jeffrey.
town in a bit at a at a meeting, and you're like, you've got an expired tag, not by 1 year, 4 years.
Yes.
Oh
So
my
that man
gosh.
was going to get interrupted in his meeting, which I didn't know he was in a meeting, but still. So yeah, that was my afternoon. So I had to like calm down for it from it.
You criminal.
I know.
I know where you live. I'm not going to tell them if they come over here to shake me down.
Gosh,
I
I was
won't
just
tell
like,
them.
really? 4 years? I mean, come on. How did we miss that? Like, how did we never notice it? And how did we not get pulled over in
I'm
4 years?
just
But anyway,
amazed that you have made it this long. Like you have
listen,
taken that van to the
this is where
beach.
this is where my mind goes. I'm thinking like everybody notices that my tag's expired, and it's like, oh gosh, look at that tag. It's 2021. I mean, do you have running water over there? You paying your bills? Are your lights on? Like, what's the deal? You can't even pay for your tag. That's the stuff that goes through my mind. But
That is
anyway,
so
so
funny.
I think my daughter is getting it taken care of, or she's finding out for me while Jeffrey's out of town.
Oh my gosh. Well, if you need a ride or need somebody to spring you from the jail, you call me because I'll come get you.
I was like, does the universe not know I had a heart test today? Like, my heart cannot take this kind of.
You should have had been pulled over on your way so you could say I've already had a stress test.
Well, and I was like, that's what I get for wanting to go home down 280, but otherwise I wouldn't have known. And I was wanting to
Yeah.
take the van about an hour down the road next week with my family. So I guess it's
Yeah.
just best that we find out. So anyway, that was my afternoon.
That's amazing. Well, I don't have anything that exciting.
Well, that's
Not,
good.
yeah, nothing like that.
That's a positive.
Although I will say, and I'm not going to say the name, I may have said the name on another episode, and if I have, then so what. But the only excitement I had today, which was one of those moments that really ticked me off, um, my son, my youngest son, is graduating from college in about 2 months. So it's a very long story that I won't go into, but paying his tuition, paying it online, setting up a payment plan, doing all this stuff. And I'm, handling all of that every month, taking care of it, whatever. So I paid his tuition. I'm waiting on his dad to pay me back part of the tuition, our arrangement. Okay. So zero balance. He texts me, I guess, 2 weeks ago, something like that, says, hey, mom, I had to apply for graduation. There's a fee, whatever. And so I say, no big deal. Go in, pay the graduation fee, zero balance. Now we're on number two, zero balance. He texted me today some screenshots of these emails that he got from the university that basically say you have until tomorrow to clear up this
Oh
balance
my gosh.
or you're going to be unenrolled from these classes, whatever. Like, I'm just skimming through it because I'm working. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, it's been paid. Like, in
Right.
fact, I overpaid it and they cut me a check back. And then was the graduation thing, so I paid that, so zero again. I mean, in fact, I had overpaid, so they cut me a check for the difference.
Mhm.
So I'm like, I don't get it. And I read the second one, and it basically says, okay, no matter how many hours you take, you have to pay the fees for 15 hours. So he's enrolled for like 12 because this is his last semester, but he has to pay fees for 15. I go in there, log on. There is a $270 fee posted today, due tomorrow, or they're going to cancel his classes.
I've never heard of that.
When I tell you that I was hot, I was like, I don't have time to deal with this right now. I log on, I pay the $270. I take a picture with my phone, I send it back to him. I said, I paid. I don't appreciate this because, and I took a picture of the posting. It said posted, had today's date, but then the email is like basically acting like we haven't paid the bills. I'm like, look at the history. You cut me a check back in January because I overpaid. Then the other fee went on and paid. Now this threatening to basically he can't, finish his classes because we owe this money. I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
Why do you
So
have to pay fees for 15 hours? Will you get that money back since he's not taking 15 hours?
no, no.
Oh my
Apparently, whether
word.
you take 12, 15, 18, whatever, you have to pay fees for 15. Okay, I'm not saying I like it. Fine. If that's your policy, fine. Why are you posting it in March? Why
Yeah.
did you not post it when I paid the first payment back in December? It's March. It's been 3 months. So, anyway, first world problems. I'm
Right.
sure that there's a whole lot more to be worried about, but I was like, you have got to be kidding. I think I was irritated that I had less than 24 hours to act on it. Like, what if I'd
Yeah.
been out of town? What if
Right.
I'd been incapacitated somewhere? I mean, and threatening to take him out of school or
Right.
cancel his classes because he owes a fee for a class he's not taking. I was like, what? So, anyway, I'm not going to say the name of the university. He's had a wonderful experience there and all that, but get your ish together
Right.
because in 2 months, we won't be worried about this anymore. But come on.
So I think today we're going to get into relational type convo,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I took some notes and mine's kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
I know you may want to gear more towards um, marital type relationships or long term relationships
Mm-hmm.
with your partner. And I did go along those lines too, but I kept going back to like friendship relational
Yeah.
issues. So I'm going to try to not go there and just kind of keep it on the same playing field because we'll be here till midnight otherwise. But
Yeah. I think it's okay to touch on that stuff though, because it's really all relational.
yeah,
It
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 is.
all matters.
And
Yeah.
I think you can have a lot of the same qualities that you're looking for in a partner that
Yeah.
you can in a friend.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
I
yeah.
agree. So I just think in today's world, and this is just a general statement, and obviously, this is my opinion. We talk about this every single episode. Don't come at us and be like, science says blah, blah, or that was not what happened with me. This is 100% my unadulterated opinion. But I think so many people are used to quick satisfaction. They don't have a lot of, this isn't really a word, but stick to itiveness. They're
Yeah.
not in it for the long haul. Um, and I can honestly say, me looking in the mirror, I have been that way in my past, right? I'm
Mhm.
going to take accountability and I'm not going to sit here and point fingers. I will just say a lot of times people bail really quickly. And I'm reading a book right now, which is really good, called I Want to Trust You, But I Don't. And it really talks about a lot of different wounds that you may have had in your life. And it doesn't necessarily mean marital, it doesn't necessarily mean boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. It can be, friendship, it can be
Mhm.
your family, it can be people that you trusted that you worked with, or, just a distant family member. And I think we carry those wounds a lot more deeply than maybe we like to admit. And nothing teaches you how to deal with the future more than the past. And so I think you have to be really careful with that. And again, I'm preaching to myself. I'm very guarded. I'm very protective of myself, my safety physically, my heart. I don't want to be taken advantage of. I don't want to be lied to. That's probably my number one. And
Same.
we've touched on that too. Do not lie to me under
Mhm.
any circumstances. And I think that's really tough when you're in a situation like I'm in now where I'm dating and I don't trust anybody.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to open myself up to form some sort of relationship with people. And quite honestly, I don't believe a word you say. And you have to prove yourself to me. And that's not really fair. I don't want to bleed on those that didn't cut me.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely more of an actions speak louder than words person. I've really kind of always been like that, and I had my fair share of not doing the right thing and not always being honest? Absolutely. But for the most part, I you can tell me something all you want, but if
Yeah,
your actions show me differently, that's what I'm going off of.
sure. And you
So,
should.
yeah. Um, you mentioned something a second ago. I was trying to pull up some things online because I was just interested in looking at like divorce rates. And, I think in today's world, yes, we can look at marriages, but there's also so many relationships out there with partners that don't get married, or you
Yes,
have a live-in partner, or it's just a long-term relationship. So some of this, when I'm speaking tonight, is geared towards that. So I'm not necessarily just touching on marriages when I'm giving my unsolicited opinion here. It's just any long-term relationship for me in today's
sure,
world.
sure.
But I found it interesting that I looked up the divorce rates by generation. So it goes back to the beginning of last century. So from like the early 1900s. So it was categorized into 6 generations. What would you get if you had to guess? Which generation would you think has the most divorces? So we've got the greatest generation, was which is from like 1901 to 1926. Then we've got the silent generation from 27 to 45, the baby boomers. Then we've got Gen X, and then we've got the millennials, and then Gen Z. So out of all those, who would you think has the highest divorce rate?
I'm going to say Gen X.
No,
I am stunned.
I'm stunned as well. It's the baby boomers.
I can't believe that.
Well,
That is so hard for me to believe. That was
I
the,
was
in my
shocked too.
mind, Ward and June Cleaver.
Right.
That was who raised them.
Well, I think those shows that were on where you look at the All American Family, they were on in the 50s. Now, of course, I
Yes,
don't remember when they were supposed to be set. Maybe they were set in the 50s, but those married couples were born prior to that. So they would have been in
true.
more of
The
the,
30s.
the silent generation. But there was so much information. I'm not going to read all of this, but I do think it's interesting that it said that they were also the single biggest generation with like
Mm-hmm.
77 million people.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the generation that experienced um, rock and roll, civil rights,
Yeah.
television, credit cards. They pushed the boundaries with like traditional and social norms.
Free
Um,
love.
yes. And it was also the me generation, so to speak. Women started working. So you
Yes.
didn't have that traditional family where the mom stayed home. You had two working parents, which also created more spending. Of course, you've got one less parent at home. Um, so yeah, it's the baby boomer. So next time my mom says, this generation of today or y'all's generation, because I would always tell her, who raised this generation that you're talking about? It was you baby boomers, okay? So I
Yeah.
just kind of joke with her about that. But yeah, it's the baby boomers.
I am really, really surprised by that. And I get it. All of what you just said makes complete and total sense, especially the, I guess, the decline of the nuclear family when you talk about traditional roles. So the women in the workforce, that's a whole nother situation. But I almost feel like Gen X would be more so because
Me
we
too.
were in not in every single case again, but we were primarily left to fend for ourselves. We were latchkey kids. I had a little string with my key around it, like in third grade, that
Yeah.
I would go home. I mean, we raised ourselves. A lot of us right now in this time in our lives are caring for aging parents, sick parents. I know my mom had kidney cancer years back, lived with me for 3 years, you know, just a lot. And I don't know many, there are some, but I don't know many women that are our age or around that Gen X range that have never had a full time job. But
Right.
I look at my grandmother's generation and even my mother's generation, and you can still see women who have never worked outside the home. And our generation, even if you stay home now, or even if you stayed home for a year or two when your babies were little, you've still pretty much worked your entire adulthood.
Right.
I had my first job at 15. And
Yeah.
so I'm surprised by that, but I guess also they are the largest generation, which would explain more of a population.
I would have thought it would have been our generation just because we were the first generation that it was the norm to have two working parents. But also, it says on here it was also the norm for us or it was becoming the norm for us to have divorced parents
Yeah, yeah, that's
and
true.
parents that were spending money on credit cards and racking up debt, and that just became the norm. And I've talked on here before. Fortunately, that was not the case in my household. My parents have been married over 50 years, and my dad, just we didn't have credit cards. His mindset was if we don't have money for it, we don't pay for it. So I may be the exception to the rule in that way. But I think overall, um, we just grew up with different norms than our parents and grandparents. And so it just trickles down. So I found that interesting.
That is incredible. But now that you talk about it a little bit more, the sheer number of people, and then all the changes that were going on socially during that time, that does make sense. And I know my parents were divorced, but I don't even know if they would be considered fully baby boomers. I guess they would, but I don't know what the year range is there. But
It
I have really
was,
young parents, and you do too, right?
yeah, they were barely in that group. I think it was 1946 to
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And my parents were born in the 50s. So
Yes,
I
mine
think
too.
they're barely, they're at the front end of that group. So,
Yeah.
um, but I think, especially for our generation, I've also found another website where it's on a attorney's website, but a psychotherapist had written this article, so she had done some research. But most common reasons for divorce, and we could all guess what these are. This is nothing
Oh,
new.
sure.
It's lack of commitment, which is what you touched on
Mm-hmm.
earlier.
Yep.
It's infidelity.
Yep.
It's domestic abuse, incompatibility, financial reasons. So it's just all the things that we know anyway.
Yeah. And, I do think that there sometimes is information overload. So you hear one person talk or they write a book about love languages, which I think are important and they
Yeah.
make sense, right? But then you read something else or another article or another psychotherapist comes out with attachment styles. And are you anxious attachment? Are you dismissive? Are you this? And then they come out with something else. And then, kind of like what we talked about last year, you're wearing this
Mhm.
as a label. Oh, I'm a dismissive avoidant and I have anxiety and I'm this and I'm that. And before you know it, you're so caught up in that you're really have a selfish point of view and you're only worried about yourself and you're not worried about your partner. And, strangely enough, I was talking with someone last night. I mean, it's really the merging of two lives together. And I hate to compare it to business because it's not business, there's feelings involved. But if you look at it holistically, it kind of is a business. When one business is trying to purchase another one or acquire them, do an acquisition, or they're merging, what are they looking for? They're looking for synergies. Hey, you produce this, I produce this. How can we combine that together to have some cost benefit? Well, the same is true if I have a full life and this other person has a full life. What can we do to merge those together to become partners, but not lose ourselves in the process, but maybe two are better than one in certain aspects?
Right. So kind of piggybacking on what you just said, there was another article that I read, and it said that people are usually just hyper focused on chemistry rather than
Yeah.
compatibility. And how
Yes.
true is that? The first thing I feel like that we as a people group look at is, are you attractive to someone? It's the
Yes.
physical appearance right off the bat. And I think that's
Yes.
just human nature. But
Sure.
people tend to want a partner that's dependent on chemistry, which obviously is totally important. You need to have chemistry with your partner, but
Sure.
maybe we're putting more emphasis on chemistry than compatibility. And
Absolutely.
it's not, sometimes we don't look at things long term. You think, oh, I'm
Right.
attracted to this person. We have great chemistry. We're going to last forever. It's that fairy tale relationship that you're in, or that fairy tale that you think that you're going to have. And we all know that for the most part. I mean, there's always exceptions to the rules, and there's couples out there that are exceptions to the rule, but the honeymoon will be over at some point, okay?
Sure.
And you get into real life. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't still have chemistry with your partner or that you're not still attracted to your partner, but like you said, you're running a household. You're having to compromise on your marriage, on work, on kids, and I mean, I hate to say it, but it is kind of like a business. You
It
have to
is.
communicate and you have to figure things out together. And so, are you compatible in the way that you communicate? Are you compatible in things that you have in common? Because as the relationship goes on and as you go down this journey in marriage, I think those things become more important. and and
Absolutely,
that's
they do.
and that's what's going to make a relationship last.
Oh, yeah. And let's face it. I mean, right now in my life, my children are grown. I'm not looking for a man that I think has great attributes to be a good daddy to a newborn, right?
Right.
But do I still look for a man that has integrity, that can be a good role model for my adult sons? Absolutely, I do. My boys are very protective of me, and they don't want me being with someone who doesn't have integrity or treats me any sort of way. So that's just one example. But, it's great if you both love to kayak, but are you kayaking when you're 80?
Right.
Probably not. So it's great to have common interest. That's important too. But it's more important to have shared values. What do you think is important, and what kind of character do you have? And unfortunately, character's forever. You can think somebody's hot all you want to, but that does not pay the bills and that does not keep you together.
Right. So I think sometimes as youth, and when I say youth, I just for me that's like in your 20s and younger,
Yes,
you feel like you're mature. You feel like that you couldn't love this person any more than you love this person. And I'm speaking from experience
sure.
because I have often said about a past relationship of mine, I know 100% that I loved that person as much as I could at the age that I was.
Yes,
And that was all that I was capable of. Now, I didn't realize that at the time,
of
but
course not.
you don't know what you don't know, okay?
Yes,
And so I think that youth tend to lean more towards popularity, appearance versus character and looking at things long term. And I don't necessarily fault them for that. Again,
no.
you don't know what you don't know. But the things that would have changed in our lives had we known when
Mm-hmm.
we were younger,
Sure.
a lot of times can save so much heartache. But hindsight is 2020, and you
It
can't go
is.
back with major regrets. Now, I'm not one of those people that say, "Oh, I don't have any regrets in life." I have plenty. Okay, I have
Sure.
plenty of regrets.
Sure.
But with that being said, I am the person who I am today because of everything that's happened in my life. And I think it's important to just try to learn from mistakes and circumstances that you've been in and move on. To put it
Agreed. And you can say all day long, there's a million different things that you can say about a relationship, but it is sort of like a marathon. Mile one, you're feeling great. Mile two, all right, I've got this. Mile three, maybe your legs start hurting pretty bad. Mile four and five, you're like, I cannot believe that I signed up for this and I paid someone to let me run this stupid race.
Mhm.
I mean, as it gets longer, there are times that you're just like, I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit. I can't do this. My legs are burning. My lungs are burning. I just can't do this. And then at some point, you get a second wind and then you get tired again. That is life. And that's what I was explaining to this person that I was having a conversation with last night is it really is about the ups and downs. It's going to be at work. It's going to be with your friend. You and I have known each other 42 years and we've had our ups and downs. And I have been a total jackass at times. And there are just, you either choose to stick it out or you don't.
Right.
Every day is not going to be sunshine and rainbows. And I think some people, they just cut and run
Right.
at the first sign of any trouble whatsoever. And again, are there times that you do need to cut and run?
Sure.
Unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, if you're being abused physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, all of the above, you need to leave. And that's unfortunate. Um, but a lot of people just don't even, they have a bad day at work and they want to quit their job. And they, have a bad day with their spouse. They want to quit their marriage. They get in one little tiff with their friend. I'm never talking to them again. I mean, I understand those feelings because we're human. But if you never have a commitment to anybody or anything, I just don't know how you live your life like that.
Right. Well, it's interesting that you use the marathon as the analogy because in some of the um, things that I was reading online, it mentioned that usually for divorced couples that get divorced, it usually happens maybe around year 7.
Yeah.
So, and I think that that depends on if, or maybe it factors into if you have children or if you're both working. And again, the honeymoon phase eventually ends. And I
Yeah.
think when you get out of that honeymoon phase, and my husband says this a lot, there's like a huge mountain that you have to go over. The
Mm-hmm.
honeymoon phase is over. It's real life. Maybe you're finally getting into the groove of paying bills. Maybe you've gotten yourself into some financial debt that you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to get out of. Again, that's fine, but it can put stressors on marriages. And if you can get over that hump,
Mm-hmm.
and then on the other side of it, and that may be when your kids are a little bit older and they're not as dependent, and then they're on the verge of moving out to where it's just you and your spouse, and you can focus on each other again
Mm-hmm.
without all of the other variables that have been in place for the past 10 or 15 years, then that's usually a positive or a good sign that
Yeah.
you're in it for the long haul. So now apparently, I missed the memo on first marriages lasting, 7 years. But however,
Same Z's.
but that's okay. We learn. And listen, I think back going on to the other side of this, talking about friendships. I think back every now and then I have these random thoughts of things that I have said to my friends in the past, or back then we actually wrote letters. And
Oh, yeah.
I had friends that I wrote letters to that
Mm-hmm.
were either out of state or 10 minutes down the road. And I thought, what a witch you were. Like, what possessed you to say the things? Or you got mad at this person
Yeah.
for someone that they were with that you didn't approve of or you didn't agree with, and like you can't even figure out your own relationships
Yeah.
and yet
Yeah.
you're going 90 to nothing with the pen and paper, telling your friend if you can't get your act together, basically, then see ya. So it's just stupidity and ignorance does come with youth. I
It
don't want to
is.
offend anyone out there,
Yeah.
but thank God
Well, and
we made it to the
honestly,
other side.
too, I know for a fact, and this is not an excuse. This, like I owned it. I just said I've been a jackass to you. I've been a jackass to other people. I think everybody has their days, but I think a lot of my childhood, I think I was very kind of angry and frustrated. a lot of the times, and I would shove things down, and I use humor as a coping mechanism, which we can all thank God for that because I'm 50 and I still crack myself up. But, I think when you don't have that emotional intelligence, you don't have that maturity to know how to work through those feelings, you shove it all down and then it explodes.
Yeah.
And I try really hard not to do that now, but I mean, I would be lying if I didn't say it comes out sometimes still. I mean,
Sure.
nobody is even keel all the time. And, I would just say I am looking for someone who is not even keel all the time. I'm not expecting someone to give something that I can't give, but just someone who can speak to me with kindness and have respect for me. And that goes without saying, being respectful to my face and kind to me and to my friends and to my family, but also being kind and respectful to me when I'm not in the room.
Right.
And that means more to me sometimes than somebody giving me this proverbial pat on the back. Is somebody saying something about me, or God forbid, other, circumstances, and them having my back and being like, no, absolutely not. That is my wife, or that is my girlfriend. That is my friend. You're not going to talk bad about her. Yes, she has her faults, but that's not your place. I'm not going to run her down in the dirt, you know?
Yeah.
And I just think it's important. Loyalty is important, honesty and integrity, all of those things matter, whether you're talking about a work relationship, a friendship, or a romantic relationship.
Right. I also think it's important to find a way to, I don't know if, I mean, I guess forgive yourself, but look at changing the things that you've done wrong. And I'm
Yes.
struggling to find the words because for me, I at times set my expectations low, whether it was with a relationship or with a friendship, because I felt like I really wasn't going to get any better or deserve better. Now, again, that's
Mm-hmm.
not to say anything about the friendships that I made necessarily or the
Right.
relationships that I was in,
Right.
because these are my issues. But I think until you deal with your own crap,
Yep.
deal with your own issues and try to work through that, sometimes, because I have high expectations out of people. My mom has always told me that, and I don't think I always realized it.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of it is I just expect certain things out of people, which can be a little ironic because I've not always given that. So I don't know why I've always expected it, but I do tend to deal with things and approach things out of fear. I've always done that. I still do that. I can be
Mm-hmm.
very overbearing and controlling out of fear,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's with my family or my children or my friends. That's just how I cope. And I think some of that is maybe my past in
Mm-hmm.
all areas. I think, okay, I know where this road is going to lead. We're not going to do that. And so
Yeah.
I just am gung ho about, probably just putting pressure on everyone else that I'm around. But so I think if we can get ourselves under wraps, so to speak, that will help. And if I would have figured that out earlier, now listen, my husband may say differently because still can be very controlling and high maintenance in certain areas, but I also know that I'm much better than I was. And I can admit that and move forward and try to approach things differently. But it's always a struggle for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I can say, well, I have good intentions, or I'm doing this because I love you, or I don't want this to happen. And all that's fine and great. But at some point you also have to realize sometimes you can't use that as an excuse to
Yeah.
be overbearing with people or expect too much out of people. That's just unattainable. Perfection is unattainable.
Yeah. And I am a perfectionist and
Me
I
too.
hear what you're saying. I would say the opposite is true for me. I have had such incredibly low expectations for people in my life as far as and I think there's a ton to what you said about fear and control. I think when you fear something is going to happen, something bad is going to happen, I'm a fixer and I'm a doer. And I'm not going to just sit back and watch it burn. That's
Hmm.
not my, and whether that's work, friendship, whatever, like I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try to work through it. But I have extremely high expectations for myself. And I have taken less than the bare minimum from others. And I'm not doing that anymore. And I'm not going to create an environment where nobody's good enough and their efforts aren't good enough. I'm not going to create that kind of environment because I don't want to be difficult to be around. But I'm also not going to just accept whatever breadcrumbs you're willing to throw my way.
Right.
I'm not going to do that. And I have done that a lot in the past. And when you have no boundaries or you don't have strong boundaries and you have low expectations of everybody else because you just assume that they're going to let you down, but you have perfectionistic tendencies on your side, you're your own worst enemy.
Right.
And you just strive and strive and strive, and it's never good enough because you're never getting anything in return. And I refuse to do that anymore. And if someone wants to be in my life, they're going to have to put forth an effort. So that's a hard lesson that I've learned over the last few years.
Yeah, it takes time. But, I think the older that we get, our it's like our priorities shift and
Mm-hmm.
maturity happens. It just
Yeah.
it is what it is. It's the evolution of becoming wiser, having
Mm-hmm.
wisdom. It's almost like the cliche that you used to hear when you were younger and with your grandparents. But, knowledge and wisdom does come with age. It is what it is. And we just have to go through those hard times. But I will say, on kind of on a separate note, I thought about this a lot a couple of weeks ago, and it's something that just happened to come up. So, I had a funeral that I had to go to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've actually gone to a couple these past couple of weeks, but I went to a funeral of a former family member a
Mm-hmm.
couple of weeks ago. And honestly, I wasn't nervous about it or anxious about it or anything. I really wanted to go to pay my respects. I had not seen this family member in decades because they've
Mm-hmm.
not been my family for that
Mm-hmm.
long.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew there would be ex family members that I would see there. Again, I wasn't anxious.
Sure.
I was fine with it. Um, and I wanted to be there for my daughter. So I went to this funeral and got to see a lot of people that I've not seen in a long time and
Mm-hmm.
talked to a lot of people I've not seen in a long time. I don't know why I feel like I'm about to get upset about it, but um, I think it's just important for this to be shared. But that relationship is water under the bridge. There's no animosity. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing like that. Hasn't been like that for a long time. So I just want to preface by saying that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was actually, other than the circumstances of being at a funeral, it was actually really nice to
Mm-hmm.
get to see a lot of those individuals
Sure.
because, and my husband went with me, and I even talked to him about this on the way home, and we both agreed. But those people were a very important part of my life,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't a particularly long time,
Mm-hmm.
in my 50 years of life, but it was a very special time and a very important time.
Yeah.
And my daughter was a result of that relationship.
Mhm.
So it's like I realized that those people will always have a special place in my
Mhm.
heart. And I know that sounds so cliche, but it's true. And I realized it when I was there. I found myself I enjoyed talking to them. I
Sure.
enjoyed visiting them. My ex's children were there, and we were talking to them, and it was just so nice to get to have conversations
Mhm.
with people that I still have memories of,
Mhm.
and I still have fond memories of. Now, there was a time where it wasn't so fond, and I had to take time to get past that. Again, that was years ago on Water Under the Bridge, but
Mhm.
it made me realize that sometimes it just takes time to heal,
Sure.
and that it's okay for those people to still be important to me, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Of
Now,
course.
I see all of them on Facebook, and we're all Facebook friends, so it's not like I don't ever know what's going on or we don't comment on Facebook. But as far as seeing them and being around them and spending time, that doesn't happen. But I just realized it's okay, even though I'm remarried, it's okay for those people to still be an important part of my life. Now, I'm not
Yes.
gonna go hang out and have lunch with them or anything like that, but I still I it it reminded me that, I care about these people, and I also love my daughter, and so
Mhm.
I will always have a connection to this family. But and that's okay. You don't have to feel bad for still having sentimental feelings for people in your past. Now, I know that's not always the situation, so I'm not
Sure.
suggesting that that's where everyone needs to be. Again, it takes time. Everyone's circumstances are different. For me, this is my experience. But I really felt it a bit freeing and thought it was really cool that I could be at this place in my life to where I don't just think of these people as, oh, yeah, I mean, they used to be part of my life, but who cares now? I really care about them and cherish the memories that I have with that family.
Well, things are don't they don't have to be mutually exclusive.
Right.
You don't you can have very fond memories and care about someone's well-being and them not be in your life every day.
Yeah.
You don't have to text them every day. You don't have to send them Facebook memes or TikToks. You don't have to go have lunch with them, but it's okay to still be mature enough to appreciate that part that they played in your life.
Right.
And even if it's a grain of sand in the whole sandcastle, it is a part of you, and especially because of your daughter. And it's okay that they helped make up that part of your life.
Right.
And, you know, I am in a similar but not similar situation where when I went through my divorce, I lost half of my family. And I don't mean my blood family, but this person that I was married to, I loved his parents dearly. We
Hmm.
were very close, and I have not seen them since all of this went down. So that was, you know, 2023. So that hurts my heart, and I wish that we could still maintain a relationship, but I don't think it's in the cards at the moment.
Right.
But that's not any. I have no ill will, and it's not my doing. So the phone goes both ways.
Yeah, and fortunately, I have a husband who's pretty open-minded and understands all that. And listen, we all have baggage, so
Sure.
this isn't just like some ex-boyfriend that you dated for 6 months and all of a sudden you're BFF on Facebook or you're having lunch. Obviously, it's nothing like that. So
Sure.
I think again we have to have a little bit of common sense about it, but I just thought it was nice that, you can be okay with past relationships. Just because relationships fail
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that it has to haunt you for the rest of your life. And I
Sure.
think for so long, that's how I felt. And I did. It was like the scarlet letter that
Yeah.
you wore around town. And so it
Sure.
was just failed relationships. Again, whether it's marriages or just long-term relationships with who you're dating or friendships or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
because everyone's situation is different. Let's be honest, you know, you could have been divorced multiple times, or you could have multiple failed long-term relationships. In today's
Mm-hmm.
world, it's a piece of paper, is
Yeah.
how a lot of people look at it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think as I'm speaking just overall and under the
Mm-hmm.
umbrella of relationships, I think we need to not be so judgy sometimes when this person over here maybe has several long-term relationships that haven't worked out. Okay, you weren't married, but something still happened to where those relationships didn't work out. And maybe these people over here were married and they didn't work out for the exact same reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can get off on another tangent about that, but I just think that that's something that also we have to take into consideration in today's world, because relationships look a lot different today than they did 50 years ago, 75 years ago.
Yeah, they do. And I think I've said this before and I'll continue to say it. When there's one finger pointing forward, there's three pointing back. And, if you want grace, you have to give grace. And so you can't go around being all judgy about this person did that just because your sin looks different than mine,
Right.
you know? So I just feel like, again, going back to the commitment issue, it is a commitment, whether it's a job, whether it's a marriage, a long-term relationship, a friendship, family member. You have to be committed to work through issues. And if that person is not important enough for you to do that, then that's fine. This is America. You can do whatever you want to do. But if you consistently use people and like a paper towel and throw them away every time something gets hard, eventually the roll is empty and you don't have anybody around that you can depend on and that's going to stick by you through thick and thin. And that's your choice. And a lot of people live their lives that way. But it is refreshing when you have maturity and you can look back and everything doesn't have to be drama. And I know we're getting close to our time, but I would be remiss if I didn't share this. And we can even cut it out if you want to, Lisa. But I will just say this is just a funny ending for us to end on. It's about my loyalty to Lisa and hers to mine, to me. Um, I saw somebody that Lisa used to date, and I said that I did not like him, and I gave him the stink eye and was so rude to him. And I remember texting Lisa
This
from
is
my
Mandy's
car.
loyalty.
Yes, because if you mess with my friends, you are going downtown. So I texted Lisa and I'm like, I saw him and I gave him the stink eye, which he probably was like, who cares? But I think he spoke to me and I went, just gave him the stink eye. So I'm texting her from my car because I'm so pissed off about it. And she's like, well, I don't hate him anymore, so you don't have to. And I was like, okay. So the next time I saw him, I was like, hey, what's up? So when she like gave me permission that I didn't have to hate him anymore, I was like, oh, okay. But up until that point, like I'm dragging you, buddy. Like there is nothing you can do because that is who I am. Like you do not mess with my friends.
Right. Yes, I do remember that. But that was one of those relationships that did not end very well. And um
Yeah.
so yeah, Mandy would run into him quite often. And I do remember you texting me and me being like, listen, I don't hate him anymore. I've moved on, so you can move on. And you're just like, okay, I will.
But before that, I was like, no, we have a contract.
Everybody needs a ride or die.
That's right. And you're mine. I know you. I know you are.
Oh, how funny. That makes my cheeks hurt
Yeah.
laughing about it.
Yeah. Jeffrey told me about, you wanting to catch me outside, catch somebody outside, see him in public.
That's true.
Yeah. So
Oh, my goodness.
anyway, I'm glad you're my friend.
I'm glad you're mine too. We've got a lot of history. And honestly, sometimes I think we could have really had more had
Yeah.
we stayed in touch because, our friendship has been, we've been in touch and then we haven't, and then we have, and then we haven't. But, that's just life. And I think, oh my gosh, if we had never lost touch
I
ever,
know.
over the past 42 years, oh my word, who
Yeah.
knows where we'd be.
I know. And us living 3 miles from each other and never seeing each other for how
Right.
many years? So it's just crazy. But everything works out the way it's supposed to. And here we are on a podcast. So
Yeah,
who
that's
would have
right.
known? Who would have thunk it on the third grade cheer squad?
So funny. So funny.
Yeah.
I need to find some old pictures.
Yes, you do.
Well, maybe next time I find the was it the junior high pictures or maybe ninth grade? Listen, I could post it of Mandy because she looked like, a typical ninth grader, but I had at the time no braces. I had not gotten my braces yet. No braces and crimped hair. It was rough. I don't know if you remember that picture. Back then you could take pictures with your friends.
Yeah.
And so there's a we may have had more than one. I feel like there might have been another one when I had a perm, but this particular one is Lisa pre braces and crimped hair. So it's
Well,
funny though.
look, we all went through our ugly duckling stages. I think I'm in one right now.
No,
But it is just something that happens, and I'm telling you, some of my pictures, my boys were dying. They were like, "Mom, I cannot believe your hair was like that, and what is wrong with you? What's wrong with your face?" So, you
listen
know,
at you. You are beauty pageant queen all the time. Always in
oh
beauty
my
pageants.
gosh. That big old hair and big old bushy eyebrows. But hey, I was rocking my Brooke Shields back then.
Listen,
Look,
you knew how to rock it.
I rocked it. My hair now, I'm like 50 and it's getting thin and I'm having to like boost it up. I should have to
Let me tell
shush
you, I
it
keep
up.
doing this.
Yes, have to shush it up.
Your hair does look good though.
Thanks. Thanks. It's
From
got
what I
about
can
a
see,
half a pound of product in it.
it's a little blurry, but
Is
I can
it?
see it. Well,
Is
I don't
it?
have my glasses on. I
Oh
keep
yeah.
taking I keep taking my
I
glasses
was
off.
like, what's wrong with my hair? And you're like, well, I just can't see. I love
uh,
it.
okay.
All right.
Well, I've enjoyed this conversation. I know that we're way over, so this may just be a long podcast that gets posted, but
Yeah.
because I feel like we could talk about this for another hour, so
I think we need a part two at some point.
I think so too.
Yeah. All right. Well, you
Well, all
enjoy the
right.
rest of your evening.
You too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.